It was supposed to be a fresh start. A new homeowner had just moved into a quiet neighborhood, a place that promised peace, privacy, and friendly neighbors. The house was perfect. The street was calm. For a moment, life finally seemed steady. But peace in this neighborhood never lasted long. Only weeks after moving in, an envelope appeared in the mailbox. At first glance, it looked official. Stiff paper, bold letters, the kind that makes your heart beat a little faster before you even open it. The return address? The Homeowners Association. Inside, the words cut sharp. You are hereby fined for violation. The reason? Not loud music? Not broken fences? Not a messy yard? No. Karen, the woman who signed the letter, claimed the homeowner's trash can was left in sight for 15 minutes too long after collection day. 15 minutes. That was all. The letter was cold, almost cruel. Big words, bold print, heavy threats. Pay the fine, or face further action. And at the bottom was a name written with pride. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA board. From that moment, the tone of the neighborhood changed. The street no longer felt quiet. It felt watched. It felt judged. Behind closed blinds, Karen was waiting, timing, checking. The homeowner held the letter in silence. A mix of disbelief and anger grew stronger with every line read. Why would anyone care about something so small? Why would someone use rules like weapons? And yet, this was only the first shot fired. What seemed like a ridiculous misunderstanding would soon turn into something far bigger. Because when the homeowner refused to bend to Karen's demands, a storm began to brew, one that would shake the entire neighborhood. The fine was not about trash cans. It was about control. It was supposed to be a fresh start. A new homeowner had just moved into a quiet neighborhood, a place that promised peace, PAs, privacy, and friendly neighbors. The house was perfect. The street was calm. For a moment, life finally seemed steady. But peace in this neighborhood never lasted long. Only weeks after moving in, an envelope appeared in the mailbox. At first glance, it looked official. Stiff paper, bold letters, the kind that makes your heart beat a little faster before you even open it. The return address? The Homeowners Association. Inside, the words cut sharp. You are hereby fined for violation. The reason? Not loud music, not broken fences, not a messy yard. No. Karen, the woman who signed the letter, claimed the homeowner's trash can was left in sight for 15 minutes too long after collection day. 15 minutes. That was all. The letter was cold, almost cruel. Big words, bold print, heavy threats. Pay the fine, or face further action. And at the bottom was a name written with pride. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA board. From that moment, the tone of the neighborhood changed. The street no longer felt quiet. It felt watched. It felt judged. Behind closed blinds, Karen was waiting, timing, checking. The homeowner held the letter in silence. A mix of disbelief and anger grew stronger with every line read. Why would anyone care about something so small? Why would someone use rules like weapons? And yet, this was only the first shot fired. What seemed like a ridiculous misunderstanding would soon turn into something far bigger. Because when the homeowner refused to bend to Karen's demands, a storm began to brew, one that would shake the entire neighborhood. The fine was not about trash cans. It was about control. And Karen was about to discover she had picked the wrong neighbor to fight. And Karen was about to discover she had picked the wrong neighbor to fight. The homeowner tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Karen was just having a bad day. After all, who would care so much about a trash can? But deep down, something felt off. Days passed, and the air around the house grew heavier. Every time the homeowner stepped outside, it felt like unseen eyes were watching. The sound of blinds shifting, the faint click of a camera phone, a presence that was impossible to ignore. Then another letter came. This one wasn't about trash cans. Karen had found something else. She claimed the grass in the front yard was too long, half an inch over the HOA's standards. Half an inch. The words in the letter dripped with arrogance. Your failure to comply lowers the value of this community. Consider this your final warning before larger penalties. The homeowner's hands shook holding the paper. First trash cans, now grass. It was clear. This wasn't about keeping the neighborhood nice. This was personal. Neighbors whispered about Karen. Some said she had been running the HOA for years, treating the neighborhood like her own kingdom. She fined people for toys left in driveways. She scolded families for holiday lights hung too early. And anyone who fought back? They regretted it. But this time, Karen had chosen someone different, someone who wouldn't roll over. The first warning wasn't just a rule. It was a message. A message that said, I'm in charge. Do as I say. The homeowner stared at the letter one last time before setting it down. Karen thought this was the end of the story. But in truth, it was only the beginning. The first warning had been enough to make the homeowner angry, but not enough to break them. They thought maybe if they stayed quiet, kept things neat, and followed every small detail, Karen would back off. But Karen never backed off. She struck again, and this time she made sure everyone noticed. It started on a Saturday morning. The sun was barely up when the homeowner heard footsteps outside. Curious, they peeked through the blinds, and there she was. Karen, phone in hand, camera ready. She stood at the edge of the driveway like a guard on patrol, snapping pictures of the yard. Within hours, another letter arrived. This time, the violation was so absurd it almost felt like a prank. Karen had written, Your mailbox is not up to HOA standards. The paint is faded and unacceptable. A fine has been issued. The mailbox. A small detail no one else would ever care about, but Karen treated it like a crime scene. She listed measurements, colors and codes from the HOA bylaws, twisting them to fit her narrative. The homeowner couldn't believe it. First trash cans, then grass, now the mailbox. It was obvious. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was hunting for them. She was searching for the smallest crack, the tiniest excuse to flex her authority. Neighbors began whispering again. One family mentioned they had been fined because their kid's basketball hoop was visible. Another had been threatened for leaving a garden gnome on the lawn. Everyone knew Karen's reputation, but most chose silence. Silence was safer. But silence wasn't an option anymore. The homeowner decided to confront her, not with anger, but with calm. They approached Karen one afternoon while she was watering her flowers. The moment their shadow fell on her lawn, she looked up with a smirk, as if she had been waiting. Karen, the homeowner began, trying to keep their voice steady. These fines, they don't make sense. A trash can, grass, a mailbox? Isn't this going too far? Karen's smile widened. She tilted her head, letting the water drip from her hose onto the ground. Then she said the words that made the homeowner's blood run cold. Rules are rules. If you don't like it, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Calm, smug, confident. Like she truly believed she owned every driveway, every lawn, every mailbox in sight. The homeowner walked away in silence, fists clenched, heart racing. That moment confirmed the truth. Karen wasn't going to stop. Not until she got exactly what she wanted. But what Karen didn't realize was that this neighbor wasn't like the others. They weren't going to hide, and they weren't going to give in. For every letter Karen sent, every fine she dreamed up, the homeowner was quietly preparing, gathering notes, studying the HOA's own rules, watching for every slip, every abuse of power. Because Karen had just made her biggest mistake. She thought she had won. But in reality, she had just awakened her strongest opponent yet. And soon, she would find out exactly how wrong she was. The days following the mailbox fine were heavy with tension. Every time the homeowner stepped outside, Karen's presence was there. If it wasn't her standing on the corner with her phone, it was the feeling of her watching from behind her blinds. The neighborhood no longer felt peaceful. It felt like a stage, and Karen was the director, pulling every string. But the homeowner had had enough. The next HOA meeting was approaching, and for the first time, they decided to go. If Karen wanted to play games, then she would have to face them directly. The night of the meeting arrived. The community center lights glowed in the dark, and rows of folding chairs filled the room. Neighbors sat quietly, whispering to one another. Some avoided eye contact. Others glanced nervously at the front of the room where Karen sat, smug as ever, in the center chair. She looked comfortable, like a queen on her throne. A stack of folders sat beside her, each one marked with violations, fines, and names. The homeowner walked in, heart pounding but face calm. The room shifted. People noticed. Karen noticed. Her smirk widened. When the meeting began, the usual business dragged on. Landscaping updates, budgets, community events. Karen breezed through it all, speaking like she owned every detail. But then came the part everyone dreaded. Violations. Karen opened her folder and called out the homeowner's name. Her voice was sharp, meant to sting. She listed every so-called offense: the trash can, the grass, the mailbox. Each word dripped with authority. Finally, the homeowner stood up. "Karen," they said firmly, the room falling silent. "These fines are ridiculous. None of them make sense, and you know it." Karen leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Rules are rules. You broke them. End of story." But this time the homeowner didn't sit down. They met Karen's stare and asked a question that sent a ripple through the room. Are these really about rules? Or are they about control? The silence was heavy. Neighbors shifted in their seats. Some looked down, others looked up at Karen, waiting for her response. For the first time, the smug smile on her face faltered. Karen quickly recovered, her tone sharp. "If you don't like the way this neighborhood is run, maybe you should consider moving. Plenty of people would love to take your place." Her words hit the air like a weapon, but the homeowner didn't flinch. Instead, they nodded slowly, as if confirming what they already knew. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was ruling through fear. The meeting ended with no resolution, but something had changed. Karen had tried to humiliate the homeowner in front of everyone, but instead, she had exposed herself. Neighbors began whispering as they left. For the first time, doubt spread across the room. Karen walked out with her head high, but her eyes betrayed her. She knew she had just been challenged, publicly, directly, and without fear. And the homeowner, they walked away with a new sense of purpose. Karen thought the confrontation would scare them into silence, but instead, it lit a fire. This wasn't just about fines anymore. This was about standing up, and the homeowner was ready to fight back. After the confrontation, the homeowner returned home with a storm of thoughts. Karen had been humiliated in front of the neighborhood, but they knew this wasn't over. Karen didn't give up easily. She thrived on control, and the moment she realized she could be challenged, she would come back stronger. That night, the homeowner sat at the kitchen table, papers spread out like a battlefield. Every letter from Karen, every fine notice, every tiny violation was carefully organized. Highlighters in neon yellow, pink, and blue marked suspicious points. Notes scribbled in the margins questioned the logic, the timing, and the legality of each claim. As the hours passed, a pattern began to emerge. Karen had been bending the rules, ignoring procedures, and twisting bylaws to suit her whims. She had been issuing fines without proper notice, often exaggerating the violation to make it seem severe. The homeowners' blood boiled as they realized just how much power Karen had been abusing. The research grew intense. The homeowner dug into HOA regulations, reading every line with precision. Community forums, past meeting minutes, even public records became sources of information. Each document uncovered more examples of Karen's overreach. Neighbors fined for leaving a broom on the porch for 1 hour, flags displayed too early, and even complaints about paint colors being too bright. By the time dawn broke, the homeowner had compiled a massive file of evidence. Each piece of paper told a story, not just about rules being broken, but about a pattern of harassment and intimidation. They weren't just a victim, they had discovered a map of Karen's abuse. But research alone wasn't enough. The homeowner needed proof that couldn't be dismissed. Dates, photos, letters, and neighbor testimonies. Quietly they began speaking with those who had suffered under Karen's reign. Some were hesitant, afraid of retaliation. Others were relieved to finally have someone willing to stand up. Every story added weight to the case. Every account revealed the same truth. Karen had been acting like a ruler, not a board member. Weeks went by. Late nights turned into early mornings. The homeowner created charts, timelines, and folders with titles like Violation Patterns and Abuse of Authority. Every document was meticulously labeled and backed up. Nothing was left to chance. This wasn't just preparation, it was strategy. Yet, amidst the research, the homeowner felt something else: determination. What had begun as frustration over unfair fines had grown into a mission. This wasn't about fighting Karen alone anymore. It was about protecting the neighborhood, the community, and the fairness everyone deserved. And through it all, Karen remained unaware. She continued her daily patrols, issuing threats, confident that fear would keep everyone in line. Little did she know, the homeowner was ready. Not with anger, not with rash decisions, but with knowledge. Every rule Karen twisted, every violation she exaggerated, had now been turned into evidence. By the time the next HOA meeting approached, the homeowner had built a foundation strong enough to challenge Karen's authority completely. They had the facts, they had the witnesses, they had the plan. Karen had expected silence. She had expected compliance. But the homeowner had turned every tiny injustice into a weapon, and soon Karen would learn exactly what happens when someone dares to stand up. The quiet neighborhood that once seemed peaceful now held a tension that buzzed through the air. Change was coming, and when it did, Karen would have nowhere to hide. The homeowner's research had revealed everything. Every letter Karen had sent, every fine she had issued, every neighbor she had intimidated. It was all documented, organized, and ready. But knowledge alone wouldn't win the battle. Strategy was needed, a plan, and the homeowner had one. It began quietly. Late nights at the kitchen table turned into careful phone calls and hushed conversations with neighbors who had also felt Karen's wrath. Some were hesitant at first, scared of retaliation. But the homeowner reassured them. The goal wasn't revenge, it was fairness. It was standing up for the rules, and for the people Karen had bullied. Together, they began gathering more evidence. Photos of yards, mailboxes, and decorations. Copies of letters Karen had sent that contradicted official HOA procedures. Statements from neighbors detailing their experiences with fines that were either exaggerated or completely invented. Each piece strengthened the case, forming a clear pattern. Karen had been misusing her power for years. The homeowner also studied the HOA's bylaws more closely than ever. They noted every clause Karen had ignored, every process she had bypassed, meeting protocols, notice requirements, voting procedures. All of it became ammunition. Each loophole Karen had exploited would soon be exposed. With the groundwork set, the homeowner created a step-by-step strategy for the upcoming HOA meeting. Step 1. Remain calm and professional. Step 2. Present the evidence clearly and systematically. Step 3. Let the facts speak louder than emotion. The plan wasn't to attack Karen. It was to reveal the truth in a way that the board and the neighbors couldn't ignore. The anticipation was electric. Each day that passed before the meeting added to the tension. Karen continued her usual patrols, unaware that the tide was turning. She sent another threatening letter about a slightly crooked garden gnome, confident she still held all the power. But the homeowner only smiled. Every action Karen took was another piece of proof, another point to present. Neighbors slowly began to understand the plan. They were no longer afraid to support the homeowner quietly, leaving small signs of agreement, nodding at meetings, sharing similar stories, confirming timelines. The homeowner's calm determination inspired a quiet confidence among the community. Even the smallest details mattered. The homeowner practiced presenting the evidence, rehearsing the order in which to reveal letters, documents, and testimonies. Every slide, every folder, every highlighted note was arranged to build suspense, to show the full extent of Karen's misuse of authority. By the time the meeting began, the case would be undeniable. And through it all, the homeowner remembered one rule: patience. Karen thrived on impulsive reactions and fear, but the homeowner had learned to wait, to plan, and to act deliberately. Every moment of quiet preparation now became their advantage. The plan was set. The evidence was ready. The allies were prepared. And soon, the showdown would arrive. Karen thought she ruled the neighborhood, but the homeowner had turned every injustice into a weapon, and when the right moment came, Karen's power would crumble. For the first time, the homeowner felt the thrill of confidence, the calm before the storm. The battle wasn't just about fines anymore. It was about justice, fairness, and standing up to a bully who had ruled too long. And Karen? She had no idea that the end of her reign was closer than she thought. The day of the HOA meeting arrived, and tension hung in the air like a thick fog. The community center was buzzing with neighbors, some curious, some nervous, all aware that something was about to change. For weeks, Karen had ruled the neighborhood with fear, confident in her ability to intimidate anyone who dared challenge her. But today, she would learn she had underestimated the wrong person. Karen entered first, her usual confident smile in place. Folders in hand, she looked every bit the queen of the boardroom, prepared to humiliate the homeowner once more. Her eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to oppose her. She had no idea what awaited her. The homeowner arrived moments later, calm and composed, carrying the fruits of weeks of research. Every letter, photo, and testimony was neatly arranged in binders. A quiet confidence radiated from them, a stark contrast to Karen's tense smugness that she couldn't hide. The room shifted as neighbors noticed the difference. Whispers began, curiosity mixed with anticipation. When the meeting opened, Karen immediately called out the homeowner's name. Her voice was sharp, meant to dominate the room. She began listing all the fines she had issued: the trash can, the grass, the mailbox, and more. Her tone dripped with authority, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes as she noticed the homeowner didn't flinch. Then the homeowner stood, calmly, deliberately. "Karen," they said, voice clear, "these fines are not just unfair, they are illegal, and we have proof." One by one, the homeowner laid out the evidence. Letters were shown, highlighting contradictions and procedural violations. Photos were displayed, proving exaggeration and false claims. Statements from neighbors were read aloud, stories of harassment and intimidation that mirrored the homeowner's experience. Every point built upon the last, creating an undeniable pattern of abuse. The room went silent. Every eye was on Karen. For the first time, she was the one under scrutiny. Her usual smirk faltered. The confident queen of the HOA felt exposed, her authority slipping through her fingers. She tried to interrupt, tried to reclaim control, but the homeowner remained poised, letting the evidence speak louder than words. Neighbors began murmuring in agreement. Some nodded, others whispered quietly, reinforcing what they had all known but had been too afraid to say. Karen's carefully constructed image of power began to crumble, and panic flickered in her eyes. Finally, the board had no choice. The evidence was overwhelming. Karen's actions, once hidden behind fear and authority, were now visible to everyone. The fines, the threats, the manipulation, they could no longer be ignored. The board made a decision. Karen was removed from her position. Her reign was over. The homeowner exhaled, a mix of relief and triumph flooding through them. The neighborhood felt lighter, freer. Neighbors approached quietly, offering thanks, smiles, and small words of support. It wasn't just a personal victory, it was a victory for the community. Karen left the room with her head held high, but the sparkle of power in her eyes had dimmed. She had underestimated someone who refused to be intimidated, someone who knew that patience, preparation, and evidence could defeat even the strongest bully. The homeowner returned home that evening, exhausted but satisfied. They had fought not with anger, but with strategy. Not with loud confrontation, but with truth. And in doing so, they had changed the neighborhood forever. The war was over, but the lesson lingered. Sometimes the best way to defeat a bully is to let the facts speak and to stand firm when no one else dares. After the showdown, the neighborhood felt different. The air seemed lighter, quieter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. For weeks, Karen's presence had loomed like a shadow, making every porch, every lawn, and every mailbox feel like a stage for her rules. Now, that shadow was gone. The homeowner returned home from the meeting, exhausted but triumphant. The binders full of evidence were neatly stacked on the table, a reminder of every late night, every phone call, every painstaking detail that had led to this moment. What had started as a simple dispute over a trash can had turned into a fight for fairness and integrity. And they had won. Neighbors approached in small groups, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. They thanked the homeowner quietly, sharing stories of their own experiences with Karen. Some admitted they had been too scared to speak out before. Others expressed relief that someone had finally challenged her abuse of power. The homeowner listened patiently, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The community had found its voice again. Karen, meanwhile, had been removed from her position on the HOA board. Her carefully maintained image of authority had crumbled under the weight of evidence. Privately, she seethed, unable to accept that someone she considered just another neighbor had outmaneuvered her. Publicly, she remained calm, but her influence had ended. The fines she had used as weapons were gone, and the neighborhood was free from her intimidation. For the homeowner, the victory was more than personal. It was a lesson in courage, patience, and strategy. By standing firm, by gathering facts, and by remaining calm in the face of intimidation, they had turned a bully's power against her. The neighborhood now understood that fairness and rules were meant to protect everyone, not serve one person's ego. Life slowly returned to normal. Trash cans came and went without fear. Grass grew freely, mailboxes stood proudly, and neighbors greeted one another without the tension that had once pervaded the streets. The homeowner felt a sense of pride, knowing they had changed the course of the community. And yet, a quiet awareness lingered. Bullying, Misuse of power and fear can exist anywhere. But for those who refuse to be intimidated, who prepare, who act with patience and strategy, even the strongest bully can be stopped. The homeowner often reflected on those weeks of tension and suspense. They realized it wasn't anger that had won the day, nor loud confrontation. It was knowledge, preparation, and the courage to act when the moment was right. As the sun set over the quiet neighborhood, everything looked peaceful again. Yet beneath the calm, the story remained, a reminder that one determined neighbor could stand up to injustice, protect the community, and change the course of an entire neighborhood. Karen may have tried to rule with fear, but in the end, truth and persistence had triumphed, and the neighborhood would never forget the lesson. Sometimes, standing up is the most powerful response of all.